Bengals bringing in Noah Fant for a visit. We're going to give you guys a Cincinnati reaction. Coming up on the Cincinnati podcast.
Hello, world. Cincinnati. You guys are the Yoshi creators, bro.
It's a new beginning. You know what that means, right?
But I know this, the whole NFL is scared of the Bengals.
Welcome to the Cincinnati reaction show. This is for the YouTube channel, so make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that alerts button whenever you guys can, because that way you get notified so you can watch short videos like this where we're just reacting to big things. And the big thing that just happened, Noah Fant. Noah Fant is on his way to visit the Cincinnati Bengals tomorrow. This was news that came out this evening. Reported first by our boy Jordan Schultz. If you haven't checked out that episode, by the way, Jordan Schultz was a part of the pod, so make sure that you're tapping in with that. But we're here to react to it. Noah Fant was a guy that I believe we both kind of had on the radar, especially from the tight end position. When the news came out a couple of days ago that he was released, he's 27 years old. I did some research just to figure out, why are they releasing Noah Fant? It is strictly a financial situation, right? He's coming off of a 500-yard season last year, 1 touchdown. They owed him $8 million. They felt like because they drafted a guy like Elijah Arroyo, they had some depth in that room. They felt like it was too much for them to spend at the position. He also was part of the former regime there, and not a part of the new regime with McDonald. So they felt like he didn't fit the system that they were trying to run, things of that nature. So they cut him loose. Bengals, this move just makes a ton of sense, especially you talk about Eric All having a red shirt season. Eric All was a big part of the offense. They kind of used him as an H-back, but he was an integral part of the offense. And so Eric All, as we know, played alongside Mike Gesicki, who Mike Gesicki is mostly, for the most part, a big wide receiver. So you can play him with another tight end, and I think that's what they're looking for an Eric All partner. You hit me because I was at practice, right? And all I saw when I checked out my text messages was Fant and big caps. What was your thoughts about this, brother? What do you think the direction they're going in with this?
I just think, I know PFF, I looked this up, they might not agree with this, but I really feel like if you're a Bengals fan, I know the outside looking in, you probably might not feel the same way, but Eric All was very, very important for the Bengals when T. Higgins, was out, kind of getting back and all these different things. Eric All, I thought our offense was very efficient in that run. If you go look at like the Chiefs game and moving around that stretch right around then, I thought he was playing really well, and it was really unfortunate that he went out. And I think that they were selling him as though he was a above average blocker. I thought that he was average at best, but the no-tell sign of him being able to go run routes and being able to at least at best be like an average blocker. I don't think that the Bengals did anything this offseason to go and fill that, and I tweeted about that a bunch. Noah Fant, and you got to think at that point too, Eric All is brand new to the NFL, and Burrow's having success with him. I think he probably has over 200-something yards with him, right? Noah Fant, just so everybody knows, and we've been doing this on our free agent show and everything like that. Noah Fant is a guy that every time we mock, I always want Noah Fant, like in the free agency thing, that the free agency show. Why? Noah Fant is the second highest RAS score of all time. Of all time. Like out of all tight ends. And Noah Fant's only 27 years old. I know people's first inclination is to talk about what the Bengals haven't done and who they need to do and everything with the defense. I'm going to tell y'all right now. In 2022, the Bengals were a really good team. They didn't have a top 10 defense, but they were beating the dog crap out of a bunch of teams. This offense, with the emergence and being more so like solidified with Gesicki and guys like that, if you bring in the most athletic or second most athletic tight end of all time, bring him in conjunction with Gesicki and Sample, you now are hitting on every single cylinder that you can from an offensive standpoint. The only weakness that the Bengals would have on offense, it would probably be one of the better offenses I think they've ever put out. Of course, we would go to the offensive line, but that's where I think Noah Fant can somewhat help out too, because of him not being a no-tail sign. That's another thing that a defensive edge or a linebacker that even has to check on him or even get a hit on him, whatever, at the line of scrimmage. You can't even really go at Burrow the way that you want to with now another receiving threat and a big body blocker that could be in front of, the running back on some of those plays too. And then from a strategic standpoint, imagine you're going against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and you're planning for that. Like who we play, the Browns for week 1. Browns week 1 don't have JOK, right? They're bringing in brand new linebackers. What happened to the Browns when they play the Texans? I'm just using them as an example. Browns fans, you don't get too much anything from me because you're not worth it. But just using you as an example. When they played the Texans in the playoff game and Akins and the tight ends were killing them after Burrow and them guys had problems with the corners, right? I've always felt like you can exploit a team like that with tight ends because they put the onus on their one-on-one matchups on the outside. Imagine they go the whole summer thinking week 1, we got to stop Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And then you line up 13 personnel, Drew Sample in line with Noah Fant and then Gesicki out. So now I got a big, and then, so you're like, well, good. We ain't got T. Higgins on the field. But now you got a smaller corner on Gesicki out wide. You don't know if I'm blocking or staying in. And I got Chase Brown flying out the backfield. So now from a personnel standpoint, it's just hard to guard that. And if you're like Dan Pitcher, you're just thinking like, bro, I can evolve into 4 different forms of my offense throughout the season. By the time I get to the playoffs, you know what I'm saying? Y'all know how we've been doing it when we do get to the playoffs, right? And I know somebody will be like, you didn't get to the playoffs. You remember the play, they run a play action for Hayden Hurst in the Bills game, and you build off of all these things throughout the regular season. Then by the time you get to the playoffs, these teams don't know what to expect. And then, of course, you go to your horses, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in those spots. I think Noah Fant, in my mind, I want to ask you, I think he will be around the $4 to $5 million range, if that, with incentives. I think it'd be more incentivized. He's cut. Camp has just started. Maybe $3-4 million. Do you think I'm off in that? Because I think that factors in to how I feel about this too. If it's over that, then I'm not as excited about that.
I think you're spot on because I just went and looked at, what over the cap is saying the money was. So he was only guaranteed $2.5 million of his salary. He was his cap number was supposed to be 7.5. So I guess that they saved about $5 million cutting him. So I think, like you said, if you can get close to that number of what he would have had, I think you could put the pressure on. I think Joe Burrow is a factor. I know that you just sent the Wincy group chat, the tweet from Noah Fant, him talking about Joe Burrow, right? Like him being a part of this offense. I think, like you said, it's the perfect answer to what the Ravens did. Ravens went out and retooled their secondary, right? They went and got Jair Alexander. They went in, improved at the safety position. I don't care if you have Jair Alexander, Cheeto, whoever, they're not as big as Noah Fant. So if you go out there with 2 guys that are 6'5", 6'6", and line up with them, like you said, which the Bengals did last year, by the way, right? Like a lot of what the Bengals did last year was run through the tight ends. And that's why Eric All was so important to what they were doing. So they can continue to do that. And then, like you said, what if it's going to be one situation where Jamar is off of the field or Jamar is in the slot or something like that, and they got T on the outside, they've got Noah Fant, they've got Mike Gesicki. Like, that's just, how do you guard that? Like, there is no defense for that. And this was the number 1 passing attack last year. I think Noah Fant would be open to playing with Joe Burrow. This is the tight end factory, right? Like, look what happened with Mike Gesicki. He was in a very similar situation to Noah Fant right now. High draft pick. A lot of people felt like, oh, we don't know about him. We're in and out. And now he comes to Cincinnati. I mean, you're talking about this might be the best duo of tight ends that the Bengals have had since Jermaine Gresham and Tyler Eifert. I think if you get Noah Fant, I think you got that. And it's a trio, right? I'm not a Drew Sample guy, but Drew Sample is going to handle the block. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, Noah Fant, he might not be able to block. We don't need him to. We got Drew Sample. Like, we got Drew Sample at home. So that's all we need. Mike Gesicki, they said similar things to him. I don't think that you need to block in this offense with these weapons that we have. So I think Noah Fant would be a slam dunk. I would make sure that he doesn't get out of the building tomorrow.
I'm telling you, and you've been preaching this a lot, that and we talk about this in the NBA, and I think in the NBA, the way that the game is gone, for me, I think it's, if you have a defensive team, I think you're in the driver's seat and give yourself like 2 scores or so. In the NFL, I feel the exact opposite. I just feel like the better offenses just have a field day, and the defenses are just interchangeable year to year. And I think a lot of people are talking about how bad the Bengals defense is, not realizing, like I said, that's why I referenced 2022. The Bengals defense was the 17th ranked defense, but remember in that stretch, remember they weren't allowing a 4th quarter touchdown. They were getting all those takeaways, and they didn't allow I'm sorry, I said 4th quarter, a 1st quarter touchdown. So like the offense would get out on teams, and then we would end up blowing them out, and then we would run the ball at the end. Now the Bengals have 4 competent running backs. You got Zach Moss. You got we're going to talk about a little bit about camp today, and you got Chase Brown. Now that they're saying it's going to be the focal point of the offense, is what pitchers said. So you got so much stuff going on. I just think that teams will spend so much time trying to keep up with that. I thought the 2 Ravens games last year were like unicorn games to me. The Commanders game you can maybe put in there as well too, is maybe not a unicorn game, but it's a shootout. And that's the argument to say, well, if your defense isn't on point, a Jaden Daniels will just come back and cook you, right? I just thought that the Ravens game, you're up 21-7 with a bad defense. I think the defense will be a little bit better. But then when Chase Brown fumbles the ball, the only difference between that game and the game that we beat them in 2021 is Ryan and Mixon had 2 big long runs, and we ended up beating them like 41-17 or something like that. Lamar Jackson was in the building, didn't shake anybody's hands. I remember that. But in that game, you know, like it's not that you have some juggernaut roster. It's just the pieces that they're putting around it, and the way that we're doing it is a lot different than what everybody else is doing. And to me, that puts the Bengals a little bit ahead of the curve. When the Bengals went and got the wide receivers, you saw then the Dolphins come back and try to do the same thing. You saw the Eagles come back and do it the right way, right? So you're seeing like all these different things happen. And I thought the Bengals were kind of like Johnny on the spot to do it. And you see all these teams like now the Cowboys, now they go get Pickens and they got CeeDee Lamb. And it just goes to show you, like with cover 2 shells and all these different things happening, the Bengals somewhat were ahead of the curve. I think now, I think they're getting to a spot where they have a formula that I think can work. It feels like it was so long ago in 2022, but that roster and the way that that was constructed is very similar to the one that we have now, except the weaknesses in not being able to go 12 personnel when we ran into the Chiefs when Tyler Boyd goes out of the game. I don't think you have that weakness if you bring in a Noah Fant. Before you say anything, I want to let everybody know we're going to talk about camp just a little bit. If you want to hear about a couple different tidbits I got from camp, please make sure you come over to the Cincinnati Pod on YouTube right now, because we're going to kill the feed on Twitter. So just come on over to YouTube, come and subscribe. Just put in Cincinnati Pod. We're going to finish out the rest here. But go ahead, bro.
Yeah, I got another super chat here from my boy Diddy. Shout out to Diddy, $2 super chat. Appreciate that, bro. Ace and Zim together, gonna play right guard and edge. Yeah, we're gonna have to figure it out. He also says Dalton Reisner and Justin Simmons signings will be fire. I wouldn't be mad at that either. I mean, Dalton Reisner, I think I'd love for him to be a Bengal. Obviously, things are going on. You also got to think about with camp going on. There's going to be guys cut. That's why a guy like Noah Fant is available right now. So keep in mind that that's going to happen. But I just think, like you said, the Bengals have figured out something here. I think they go in on offense, and with guys like Trey not being there, this opens the door for them to bring in a Noah Fant. If these guys want to take their time, and like the Bengals can't stop making moves, right? They cannot stop making moves. And I think that this is a move that a contender would make. This is a guy that you would add that adds nothing to the locker room. He should not make any kind of exit from Paycor. Like, he should be coming in for his visit tomorrow and suiting up and signing as a Bengal. Don't let him out
Right.
of the building. I think you get him. I think you solidify yourself. You're already solid on offense, but now you have to shore up that depth because you just never know. And to me, it really, like, I kind of always talked about 2004 Colts, right? You had Marvin Harrison, right? You got that in Uno. Reggie Wayne, you got that in T. Higgins. Then you talk about Edgerrin James. We got that in Chase Brown, right? Then you talk about the tight ends, Marcus Pollard, who people didn't know about unless you knew back then. He was nice. So you've got that in Mike Gesicki, and now you get a Dallas Clark and Noah Fant, and it's nasty.
You remember that defense wasn't really that good.
No, the defense wasn't good. I mean, all you needed was a
Dwight Bob Sanders.
Yep.
And I think Freeney, right?
Yep.
So you had your premier edge rusher. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have any of that pulled up, but I think they were like the 20th ranked defense that year.
They may have been. I had to actually look it up, but yeah, they did have Bob Sanders. They did have Dwight Freeney. And I think that's the formula for what the Bengals need to do. Load up on offense, do your thing.
And moving forward, you hope that it's not that way, but these are the cards that we are dealt with, right?
Yeah.
T. Higgins ended up being a top 3 player on your team. So you can't let that walk out. Like, say Myles Murphy would have came out and just went into some Myles Garrett role. Then a real conversation would have been had about T. Higgins. This is what, you know what I mean? But for Joe Burrow, you can't afford to move guys that are the best on your team, as we learned with Jesse Bates, right? You can't move guys and then expect others to come and fill in that void as a top 3 player on the team. I don't think any team could do that. If the Eagles lost like a top 3 player on their team right now, it's just hard to do. I think Lions are a team to watch this year. They lost some very key pieces this offseason. It's really hard to replace the top players. Filling in the rest of the roster, filling in, running back position, Taj Brooks, getting a good help. Like those are the things that are a little bit simpler to me. But when you start losing the best players, whether through free agency or injuries or whatever, that's where I just don't think it's sustainable. And for everyone that's saying like, well, they should have focused more on the defense, I hear you. I think they did through the draft. We talked about Shamar Stewart on the last one. They've done it through Myles Murphy. Mm-hmm. You say focus on the offensive line. I feel like they did that in the same offseason that they didn't, sign Bates. They went and signed Orlando Brown. And then they came back and then used their first round pick to go sign Amarius Mims last year. So it's like the things that you want to do, you got to do it, but they use high draft capital to do it, because in free agency, it's just not even possible anymore to like go out and go spend the highest amount, the most guarantees. And then if you do, you can end up like Christian Wilkins from this past all season, number 1 D tackle, gets hurt, all the guarantees, goes to the Raiders. That's the part that fans don't really talk about. And it's really hard to go play in those free agency waters. It's easier to draft the Myles Garrett. I mean, not easy to draft them, but that's the path. And I think the Bengals did that with T. Higgins and company. And you go with that, and you go with Burton, and you go with those things, and, you try to supplement it in all these other different spots. I think 2-3 years from now, we're going to have a whole different conversation. Some of our defensive players that we're banking on, like Knight, Myles Murphy, and maybe Shamar Stewart, I don't know. Then you will have a conversation if one of those guys emerges, you know what I mean, and say, okay, we're going to go in this direction versus that, if they emerge as one of the better players on the team. And it is fascinating to watch. I wanted to ask you a couple different things. We talked about the Noah Fant thing. I think is really good. Did you have any takeaways or any observations from camp today that you wanted to talk about that you saw? I saw a couple things that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, for me, I think obviously the defense is going to be ahead of the offense, so I don't think that's anything, to be upset about or to be concerned about. I think defensively, I think they're going to be doing some different things this year, but they're able to make their own calls. A big transition from what the Lou Anarumo defense was. I think the defense has shown you that, given differences in control, linebackers, and guys being able to call their own stuff, I think that this is going to be very interesting to see. And I think that it's going to be, differing from the norm of what we've seen before. I think on offense, you talked about Taj Brooks. I like seeing him involved with the earlier teams, right? So I think Taj Brooks is a guy that can be RB2. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But right now, man, I'm just focused on everybody staying healthy. the offense and the defense getting situated. And we'll see. For me, I'll probably start paying attention more to the offense next week. Like, obviously, T. Higgins is out there. Obviously, we saw Yoshi working with the first team on some snaps and stuff like that. We obviously are going to pay attention to Jermaine Burton and some of those guys. But I think for now, it's just what are the things that are they doing that are different than what they did last year. And, Noah Fant, for me, bro, I gotta think that Joe Burrow's giving him a call.
That's a move, bro.
That's a big boy move, man.
That's a big boy move.
That's a big boy move. And I know I just went back to Noah Fant, but I think that how they would use him in camp, right? Like, those are things that I would love to see, and we're seeing them do some different things with guys in camp. But what were some of the things that you saw in camp?
Another thing, too, I just want to say this, too. The Colts team were the 28th ranked defense the year that Peyton Manning took the Colts to that Super Bowl. They were 32nd in the NFL in rush defense, allowing 173 yards a game. So I'm not saying that the Bengals
19th in scoring defense, though. Okay. So that's what really mattered for them, right?
My favorite stat for a defense is points per drive. Mm-hmm. If you can limit that, and it changes a little bit for me year to year, but I'm gonna come up with that in like a week or so. But if I can get to a number that I feel comfortable, points per drive per game is all I really care about. Like the yards and all that stuff like that, it doesn't really matter if Joe Burrow's playing with a 10-point lead. Like, the numbers, you know how this goes. The numbers can say whatever they want. I think one of the reasons why the Ravens struggle so much in the playoffs, and Warren Sharp was talking about this, they go through the season beating teams so bad early, throughout the regular season. They don't win. They're 23-24 in close games, right? So they have a bag record playing in close games. And what do you got to do in the playoffs? You got to play better offenses, better teams. So you're probably going to be in a close game. And when you don't do that, all that defensive stuff goes right out the window if that offense isn't generating at the level that it's got to. And they're used to playing with a lead. And Joe Burrow is used to playing whatever, balls to the wall. That's why last year was so crazy for me, being like, damn, he ain't close them out. I'm just used to him winning those close games. And to me, that's more important than any stat that you could show me on the defense end or not. But going to camp, just really quick, Taj Brooks had some reps that I saw with the first team running backs. Knight was in there in some different packages as well, too. Along Logan Wilson next to him, whatever. I thought they looked really good together. They also had it was a play that I saw where Geno Stone had a really good pressure on Burrow. It gets deflected, almost picked, gets knocked down. He said overall the defense had won. They were a little bit ahead of the game or whatever. Out of everybody that I saw, and I know people are going to say I'm glazing, shout out to my boy Trim that was sending me videos and all these different things for camp. Outside of Jamar, bro, Burton looked really crisp running his routes, bro. Out of everybody. Like, T is different. He's boxing people out if he has to. He runs really good routes. And then the caveat is for his size, right? Mm-hmm. Burton at 6 feet tall, like 6'1" or whatever they got him at, in and out of his breaks so crazy. And I thought, like, last year, I thought he was improvising on his routes too much. If he could be his timing on the same page as Burrow, brother, this dude, we're talking about the top offenses of all time. You went to your Colts one. I like greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
And the wide receiver 3, 4, you talk about Isaac Hakeem, Ricky Pro, guys like that behind it. Those are the guys that made that team just impossible to stop. And you had Marshall Faulk. Remember, Dan Pitcher is now saying that Chase Brown is now a focal point of the offense. So now you got this guy out the backfield doing that. And then the Bengals, don't look now, they have 4 competent running backs. Like, Piron isn't my favorite, but I think his receiving ability, go look at his receiving numbers, last year. I used him in my PPR league on the bench or whatever. But, like, him receiving, you got Chase Brown, you got Taj Brooks that looks pretty good already. You got all these guys like that I thought, like, are already looking like they're playing the part. The other thing I want to talk about too is Dax Hill looked pretty good for him doing his individuals. Jordan Battle, I posted a clip, I think, or I'm about to post it if I haven't posted it already. but just showing his back pedal, showing that he's trying to take that next step. He looked pretty good too. One of those things for him, for me, is more I need to see it in the game, just like Burton too. But man, there's some guys that I think people are underestimating, and they're really underestimating the Al Golden effect too. I think he's going to do a lot of things early in the season that's really, if you're a young quarterback, I think it's going to catch a lot of quarterbacks off guard, like early in the season.
Nah, for sure. But that is what we have for the Cincinnati Reaction Show. We wanted to get on here and react. We do have a super chat here from Fuzzy. I can tell already that Murphy is way more confident in playing with the quiet swagger. Shamar better get in camp, man. You better get in camp. That's all I'm going to say.
Shamar sent a message through our friend of the show, Charlie Clifford. Good show in Cincinnati. Go check that one out too. We probably get Charlie Clifford back on here again too. But said, yeah, he's busting his butt working out. And in my mind, I'm like, telling somebody that's actually out there on the field is insane. Like NFL reps versus working out wherever you're working out with. You could be working out with NFL players. You could be working out with college players. Working out with them versus working out with your peers on your team for your job, totally different. We'll see how that goes. Also, as agent, we've been putting out a lot of information. Bengals Twitter, shout out to y'all. We've been on his head, just showing people how insane this dude is. And I don't know. I'm not trying to get on the business part of it, but he doesn't have a good track record. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure. I am. Also, shout out to Midwest Best Barbecue. You know the show is always sponsored by them. So make sure you stop in 669 Justice Court in Loveland, Ohio. Let them know Ace and Zim sent you. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Cincinnati podcast. Remember, hit that subscribe button and cut on alerts so that you guys know when we go live for a reaction video similar to this. We might have one when the Bengals possibly sign Noah Fant. So make sure that you have that notification turned on. We'll be right back at you, and appreciate you guys once again for tuning in to the Cincinnati YouTube channel. Come on up on the Cincinnati podcast.
Hello, world. Cincinnati. You guys are the Yoshi creators, bro.
It's a new beginning. You know what that means, right?
But I know this, the whole NFL is scared of the Bengals.